Welcome back, Lighthouse Explorer. Today we're talking to Julian, who's an ex-lighthouse keeper. Thank you to everyone on the podcast, on TikTok, who submitted their questions. Hopefully this answers most of them. Enjoy! So why did you want to become a lighthouse keeper?
Why? Because it had crossed my mind a couple of times. I went to sea when I first left school at 17 and joined the Merchant Navy. So I was in that sort of environment for just over 3 years. I learned to cook there because I was cooking. And when I came out of that, I suppose I was aware of lighthouses. One day there was an advert I came across in the main national paper, one of the national papers, and it said that they were recruiting lighthouse keepers, Trinity House. And I only lived across the water, across the Solent from East Cowes, where Trinity House had a depot. So I popped over there and just inquired, really, and got a bit of information and consequently applied to give it a go. It was at a time when they were just double manning, what's called double manning. Up until that point, this is 1974, by the way, when I first joined in January '74. They were going to double manning, which is where you've got 6 keepers in all on each lighthouse. 3 keepers on at any one time, and 3 keepers will change over monthly. Previous to that, it was only 4 keepers on a light. So they were working 2 months on and a month off. And changing over to a month on and a month off seemed a bit more attraction. Very lucky that at the time that was just happening when I gave it a thought, really, between jobs in a way. So that's how it all started, really. Just an advert in the paper, surprisingly. In those days, this was all pre-computers and everything, and pretty low-key everything in that respect.
Yeah, so you just kind of inquired about it, and then they told you about the training, I guess. And...
Yes, that's right. Yeah. The vetting. Not that there's much in the way of vetting. You were basically vetted by whether you could cope with the job. Yeah, I think the turnover previous to double manning, the turnover was quite high. I don't know what it was in percentages, but people would find it was just too much to be stuck somewhere for 2 months, especially before helicopter reliefs. You could be doing overdues quite often on some of the lighthouses, and so there was a big turnover. But when I joined up, turnover was much less. We sort of settled down into I don't know how many keepers there were quite when I first joined. 200, 300 probably max, and then over the years it just sort of dwindled down. But the keepers sort of stayed basically the same. When I not that I met lots of them, but you would be aware of their names and have a list of seniority and all this sort of thing, because it was a dead man's shoes job or retirement sort of thing. You didn't move up the ladder other than replacing someone further up.
A very small world.
Yeah, very small world. Yeah. I always used to say there were less keepers than there were in the royal family. Yeah.
So once you'd completed your month's training at Trinity Buoy Wharf, what was the first lighthouse that you went to?
First one was a land light. As a supernumerary assistant keeper then, Anvil Point at Swanage in Dorset. I was only there for about 2 months, and then went on to Alderney Lighthouse in the Channel Islands, Quesnard Point. That's classified as a grade 3 lighthouse. which is on a fairly large island. Can't remember quite how large Auden is, probably about 5 miles long, I think. It's quite a biggish island. I was there 2 years. Great place for getting out and about, because I used to do a lot of running in those days, marathons and things ultimately, but thoroughly enjoyed my time there, really, very much so. But an advantage of going there was that it was the last of the old types of light, an IOB, an incandescent oil burning lamp. It wasn't electric, it wasn't electrified. So I had the chance to work in that environment, the old traditional system, before they had all gone, and that being the last one to be electrified. And that was extremely interesting, very manual orientated. It was an 80-foot tower, so up to the lantern, and you basically had to spend your watches up there because you had to keep an eye on the light. Being a mantle, it could carbonise up the burner and the light would dim. It would definitely happen that, and you had to keep pricking it out at least once an hour, I suppose. That's why we used to keep all the equipment extremely clean every morning. We would have to clean these vaporisers out because they carbonise up inside the tube, which was a heated tube that vaporised the paraffin, so it came out basically as a gas which you ignited and had the mantle round. But you had to really clean those out with files and stiff steel brushes every morning. You have to have 2 or 3 on standby for in case you had a major problem during the night, so you could change over and things. So that aspect of it, they were inclined to make the lens of the actual around the light very dirty with oil fumes and what have you. So you needed to do a thorough wash of the lens every week and give them a good clean at any other time with dusters, but you had to actually wash them and bring them up with a chamois to get rid of the bloom, otherwise that would have a major impact on the light, turn it yellow. We had to wind a weight up every hour. Can't remember how many winds it was, over 100 winds I would think. That was up the top, winding that up 2 hands, and then the weight falling down through this tube to the bottom of the base of the tower would keep the lens revolving round. So quite a busy manual job compared with moving on to electric lights afterwards.
I saw that mechanism, I think it was Clare Head Lighthouse in Scotland. Right. They've opened it up and they'll show you all of the mechanisms and where people lived. That one was an old converted castle.
Oh right, yes. Yeah, you actually saw the weights, did you?
Yeah,
well, depending on the height of the tower, I mean they can be quite high, a couple of feet high, these heavy weights. It wasn't a problem winding it up. The mechanism wasn't a problem in that respect, but where they did carry on using those weights after they electrified, they had electric motors which wound them up. So
was it electrified while you were there?
No. I think when I was there 74, I was there till 76. Was it 76? Yeah, 76. They must have done it in the next couple of years, I suppose. After that I went out to the Royal Sovereign for 5 years, which is a tower that they're actually decommissioning at the moment. It's a strange place, hard to describe to people. You've really got to get a picture.
The massive helicopter pads.
Yes.
Yeah.
Accommodation block, we used to call it, on top of a concrete pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was built in 1971, and is being decommissioned at the moment. I think they're finished this year. I think it's taken 3 years, I think, to do it. It's because it's concrete, just has a shelf life. Concrete. Great place though. The accommodation and the block was all on one level. Quite roomy, lots of windows all the way around, most unusual for a lighthouse. Normally there's just a few windows about, and all rock, but there it was just like a panoramic view all the way around there. It's fantastic.
Nice, like a penthouse apartment.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was. And lots of room, engine room and battery rooms were all on one side because they're heavy, and the tower on another corner. Lots of accommodation. We all had, 3 keepers had individual bedrooms, all down one side. Big kitchen, big lounge area. Great, you can get away from each other. But we used to do a lot of fishing there to help pass the time. A great place for fishing because no rocks under you. We were just guarding sort of sandbanks, basically. Very shallow waters, and get a good current running there, up to 3 knots on spring tides. So just catch a lot of fish, and we had a railing all the way around this walkway, a planked walkway all the way around each side, and a railing. And on the railing, we fixed up. One of the keepers in the past had fixed up a marvellous table sort of thing, where you could gut your fish and just push it all off into the sea, 50 feet below you.
Don't need to bring any food in.
No, well, we did manage very well eating fish, but I used to take a lot of fish home as well. Freeze it on board. Fillet it down and freeze it, and then take a red box of frozen fish home, and drive home, and then have to drive around all friends and relatives delivering fish.
I guess there aren't many things that you can bring back from your travels to a lighthouse aside from fish.
No, not really. Not on a monthly basis, no.
Were you surprised by anything when you started lighthouse keeping? You moved out of training and into Anvil Point, and
my expectations of what things might be like. Not really, not too much. No, I mean nothing was surprising. Working closely with other people wasn't a problem. For me, I was quite happy. You can tend to run out of jokes and things, and what have you. But I was lucky, I suppose, in that most of the lighthouses I worked on, I was on what's called the minor relief, because we were all doing it 4 weeks on and 4 weeks off. There was a relief every fortnight. So one keeper did a relief one month, for 1 fortnight, and the 2 keepers did a relief on the next fortnight, so that there was always somebody out there who could update the crew coming out. So when I went out, there were 2 keepers already there, been there for a fortnight, and they could bring me up to spec on anything that I needed to know that was untoward or whatever. And when they went ashore and the other 2 came out, I could update the 2 that were coming out. So I must admit, I was always on my own in that respect. Going to work, you either go by train or drive. I used to drive sometimes to different places, or come out on local boats. I was always on my own. I always had to go shopping on my own. To get my provisions, but that suited me. I'm that sort of nature, so it wasn't a problem.
And you get the fresh anecdotes.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's where I started from there, wasn't it? Yeah, it made much easier.
Yeah. So how many lighthouses were you stationed at, and over how many years?
Not a great deal. I was lucky. Some people used to be on what was called a pool of keepers, and they would have to go and do reliefs where people where the lighthouse was less, somebody was ill or something, couldn't go to work, so you'd be on a call up to go out to somewhere because the normal keeper couldn't go there. And some people were on that for some years, and they would visit loads of lighthouses, you know, dozens of them all around the country. And there's a lot of effort involved in that. You've got to find your routes to them and everything, you know, transportation and everything, and it's all new. Everything's new all the time. Whereas I went straight, never in the pool after Anvil Point, went straight onto a light and then went straight onto another light and another light. I've got a recollection of my lights, only about 5 or 6. Anvil Point, Alderney, 2 years, Royal Sovereign, 5 years, and then Lundy Island, my favourite place, 8 years on Lundy Island, big island, well, not as big as Alderney, but big-ish, and then Bishop Rock, 2 years, and then Sark Lighthouse, almost 2 years, I think. Yeah, that was 74 to 94, 20 years to the day nearly.
Yeah, and then I guess automation comes in. Yeah. Yes,
I first came across automation in on the Bishop Rock, 92. I went there in 90, I think it was, and I was there during the automation, down to one keeper actually, because we had about 3 or 4 guys there doing the automation, putting all the gear in and what have you. So didn't really need a keeper, full crew. So when I was relieved, just another keeper came out for 2 years. So I was involved in that there, and then went on to Sark. After about a year there, we started the automation there, and got involved with that. So just 2 places. In 98, of course, you're no doubt aware that's when they were all finished by 1998, 4 years later.
That's when you were born, Annie.
Yeah.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's when we went to our big dinner at Trinity House, London, because Trinity House was about 500 years old then, just coming up to it, I think, and no more keepers left. We had this sort of a celebration dinner at Trinity House, which is most memorable, and what you could take your wives, and we had a great night that night. Oh, it's my memory banks forever. But the Duke of Edinburgh was there, of course, because he was the master of Trinity House at the time, and we had all the elder brethren there, well, a lot of them, about 8 big tables with wonderful displays on of central pieces of lighthouses and lobsters and things all around them. It was absolutely overwhelming, and something I always remember.
What was the general feeling among lighthouse keepers when the lighthouses were getting automated?
Well, inevitability of it, you know, it's nobody wants to take redundancy or change their profession unduly if they're happy with it, but it was becoming more commonplace in all sorts of professions, I suppose. It was a long process, in fact about 25 years, I suppose, that automation took. The shipping companies sort of demanded an efficiency approach to keep charges under control. It's very expensive business manning a lighthouse, keeping it maintained with fuel and water and keepers and what have you. So you knew it was coming. I coped with it.
Yeah. The dinner's a nice touch though, to kind of mark the end of an era. rather than just leaving it?
Yes, we were given a medal. All the keepers who attended, and I suspect the ones who didn't make it, they would have received one as well. It's something that's quite fairly unique, I suppose. There's only, I don't know how many there were in the end, how many keepers, to be honest. But says around the edge of this medal, 1609 lighthouse keepers to 1998. That's the period that Trinity House had run at that time. Samuel Pepys was the master at the beginning, and well, of course, they're still going now. You know, there's the master at the moment is Princess Anne. Yes.
Could Alice, your wife, come and stay with you to the lighthouses or nearby?
No, never any of the ones I was on. On a landlight, she could have. We would have lived there on a landlight. We would have had accommodation, a place like Portland Bill or Nash Point or anywhere like that had accommodation for your family. And even Anvil Point actually, but I was never there really for that time. So no, she didn't really. We did, during my time as a keeper, go and stay in accommodation on Lizard Point, excuse me, on Lizard Point, and she experienced the fog signal keeping her awake at night.
And at that point, you were so used to it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, fog signals. Well, you just part of the job. You just had to accept them. You used to sometimes get long spells of 2 or 3 days, and that used to really start to grate on you like a torture white noise, because you can only keep ear defenders in your ears for a certain amount of time, because we used to use those little wax ones or the foam ones. I'm not sure if the foam ones were out in those days. I used to use the cotton ones. Very, very effective. Go into a completely isolated world, like you're completely deaf when you got those in. But they will. Your ear is tender inside, and it will sort of hurt a bit, ache, you know, after a while, especially lying on it. The pressure. No, well, Alice also came out to Sark, and we stayed in on the island there, and in self-catering accommodation, you know, in my time off. So she got to go around the lights of various places, or Lundy as well, but not actually live on them. No. She's a busy bee at home. Yeah, we always look forward to my month at home, you know, once I was married. Once on the way home from Sark, story I meant to tell you, we used to catch a ferry from Sark to Guernsey and then go up to the airport and catch a flight home to Southampton, the Aurigny flight. And one occasion it had been taken too many passengers on their list, so they were offering people with a booking money to stay until the next day and take the next day's flight, and I declined that, several £100, because I wanted to get home. Yeah, Alice was impressed with that.
Is it difficult being long distance, because it's quite a long stretch to be on for a month? And then did you write letters, or could you?
Oh yes, yeah, we wrote letters. I can remember idyllic letter writing moments on Lundy and things, you know, in the sunshine and the wonderful sounds all around of birds and the like, you know. And you could just compose a letter. It got a bit poetic at times, I suppose, because of the situation. You know, I think I always wrote my letters out in the environment when I think about it. I haven't thought of that really. Yeah.
There's some good settings for some poetry.
Yeah, I used to dabble in it a little bit. Yeah.
What were the most difficult and most rewarding parts of being a lighthouse keeper?
The most rewarding parts were the fact that you were in such unique positions. In that, well, there are not many people able to do that sort of job, but the views and the experiences that one experienced were just so unique. I can countless ones I can quote. Things that stand out to me was sort of on the Sovereign, nighttime on the top there, above the light. You could go right up, climb the ladder right up above the light there, quite unique, and see the beams of the light going around underneath you. It's still very black and dark above because these were just beams of light, really. They're not casting light all over the show, just in beams. So it was still very dark all around. And up there on a number of occasions, and one particularly, I remember a very calm summer's night, no wind at all, warm night, and the air was full of spiders, baby spiders, those tiny ones that throw little webs up like parachutes. And you see them occasionally drifting about, anywhere in the summer. But out there, 6 miles out, everywhere seemed to be full of these. 100 million, well, probably millions, I don't know. Certainly thousands and thousands of them, all flying or drifting along, sort of going south to France. I always remember that. Really,
yeah, wow, how strange.
Yeah, it was. But butterflies as well. Red admirals, quite a major migrator. Certain days in in autumn, early autumn, warm days in autumn, calm days, you'd see lots of butterflies flying like monarchs, flying south to the continent for a couple of days maybe, or while the conditions were like that. And being out there with the sea all around, you got a view of 18 miles on that one because it's not that high. 18 miles that way, 18 miles that way in a circle. It's an enormous view. You just count showers going along on the horizon. Half a dozen showers, you'd be able to identify the individual shape, the big cumulonimbus and what have you. Another thing, kept busy on that light by meteorological observations. We used to phone those through to for the Met office on a regular basis. Did those there for 5 years and also did them on Lundy for 8 years. When you were on watch, you would be doing that about every 3 hours. I think we used to send them temperatures and wind speeds and cloud conditions, cloud levels. That was interesting.
I was going to ask when you stopped lighthouse keeping, that was 1992?
94.
94.
Yeah, 94, yeah.
Have you missed lighthouse keeping since?
No, not really. I give my full attention to whatever I'm doing, I hope, work-wise, at any given time. No, I went off a complete tangent when I took redundancy, about 46, I think I was. No, I went into working with the elderly, in fact, as a resident manager of a retirement estate, sort of a village of 44 households, and very hands-on communications with lots of people.
Very different.
Yeah, vastly different, the absolute opposite. Sort of full-time all the time. But I thoroughly loved that. That was marvellous because I was on a big sort of, everyone had their own front door. It's a proper little village, and a lot of gardening involved and general maintenance. Enjoyed that for 20 years, full retirement ultimately.
Nice. Well, thank you for. I don't have any more questions, but
No.
thank you so much for speaking to me about your experiences. Thank you for joining me today, Lighthouse Explorer, and I'll see you next time for the next episode.